Welcome.
And good morning.
We would definitely like to thank you guys for coming out after a wonderful evening I hope everybody had last night at the marvelous party with 23,000 people, all synced up in one room. That was quite an amazing night, so I hope you all had a good time. And I appreciate you all giving us a little extra of your time. I assume a lot of people are ready to head home and go to continue business and everything else, so thank you all very much. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Scott Culbertson. I'm an architect for Worldwide Modern Devices, COE. And we do lots of work around kiosk services and solutions that we've had some really cool stories with our customers and stuff. And so we felt it was important that we should probably try to expand that story and help you guys understand some of the visions and capabilities that we're developing and seeing customers consume around using Windows as a kiosk device. So this is Eric. You want to introduce yourself, Eric?
Certainly. My name is Eric Moe. I'm a consultant at Microsoft Consulting Services. I work in our America's Modern Client Center of Expertise. I've worked with Scott for quite some time, working with kiosks, handhelds, and Windows 10. So as Scott said, we're going to demonstrate some stuff for you today of where we're going with Windows and building kiosk devices with Windows.
So real quick, we'll look over the agenda for today and let you guys understand where we're going. So I want to give you guys just kind of a brief overview of the kiosk and concept, as well as just do a little historical view back from where we saw this in the early days to where we are now. And then we'll start discussing and helping you guys understand some of the concepts around some of the newer capabilities and the kiosk, where we are currently with Windows 8.1. How many people have actually been using Windows 8.1 as a kiosk or like a multi-app model?
Okay. All right, so we got a few.
How many people have done it as a single app model? Okay, so there's a few there. So that's really interesting. There'll be some really cool stuff we will show you guys and help you understand some of the really neat things that we've been seeing and doing and what we see customers really taking advantage of and how they were doing it. So how did they get to that? So as we talked about, we'll talk about some of these customer scenarios. We've got a couple of videos we'll show you real quick. And then just bear through us with that, and then we'll get down into the cool and sexy stuff around exactly how do you start considering doing a design and a build, deploy, and support for these devices. Okay? So, progression of kiosks. So one of the really important things to realize is that kiosks has been around for eons. Really, really long time. Most of the cases, such as ATMs and everything else, which came out very early, many different medical implementations and services such as that have been around for a long time. You started seeing hotels are probably one of the people that started doing more of a multi-app model. Many of the hotel chains and hospitality services out there, and as well as we also saw a lot of that in the manufacturing industry. But as we move forward, we're starting to see many more different scenarios now, and we'll demonstrate a couple of those here. So what's really important to understand that this is really where we saw a big takeoff was with Windows XP. A lot of people used XP. We actually had some tool sets that were with Windows XP called Steady State. And then we also had Windows Embedded. Windows Embedded was a little bit more complex. It was an OEM-only type product. It wasn't really available for just anybody out there unless you really wanted to specialize in that space. And then we had Windows Vista, which we still had Windows Embedded, but at that point we deprecated Steady State. Steady State was the really one key component that we had right filters and such. That was kind of a mocking similarity to Windows Embedded. It was used a lot in the education systems. When we deprecated that for Vista, a lot of challenges came out. And so we ended up starting to develop a security template, leveraging a large series of policies to the device to kind of do a security model lockdown on that. Wasn't so great, and so we started seeing it kind of slipped a little bit then. Got into Windows 7. We successfully came up with a pretty good security template that really started helping lock down devices and really protecting it. We started getting some space in that, but we still didn't have, for the standard enterprise, we really didn't have capabilities like write filters, notification controls, and stuff like that. So even though it worked well, unless you went to the actual embedded product, you didn't have as cool of a scenario yet, and we were still dependent upon third-party providers out there. So we came to Windows 8. When we got Windows 8, we got the new start screen. So this is where customers started coming to us. It was really interesting. So a lot of people seemed to push back on that start screen. But customers all came to us, and they started saying, hey, we want to take advantage of that start screen. It's actually really cool. It looks much nicer than trying to use an iPad, iOS, or something else out there for a kiosk. We wanted to have a multi-app model based around that. We worked with them. We took the security templates that we had out there, and one of the first iterations of this was like at the Gartner Symposium. I don't know if anybody's been to the Gartner Symposiums back a few years back. All the kiosks out there that they use for like their agenda builders, hotel transportation services and everything were all based off this, and people could go in and sign up and find out what they were going to go out and attend for the day. A little bit like what you see out in our areas out here. So that first implementation was at Gartner Symposium, and that went over extremely well. We had several hundred of the devices out there. And that's when we started looking at that and saying, hey, Start Screen is going to make some good traction there. Rooms to Go was our first iteration out there in which we actually took a tablet and actually used that with our salespeople. So there's a great video case study around that as well, too, where they actually took that with a lockdown device. We tried to use Windows RT for Surface RT devices and everything. We found some limitations, not because how we could lock it down. We could lock it down extremely well, but we didn't have any of the enterprise management tools. So we had some gaps there. And then we went and moved into Starwood hotels with like Sheraton Link services out there. Interestingly enough, we used our concepts of the kiosk, but they wanted to use Deep Freeze, which is a third-party product, and we did that with them. But we got that start screen, that cool start screen look and feel on that, and that started really making traction. So we did all that. We've got great ideas around that, and we got a couple of different solutions we'll show here in just a minute. As we move into this and we start looking at Windows Embedded 10, as Windows 10 industry, actually, we'll go through and talk through that. I should have corrected this. We had some name changes here recently. It's the transforming from having that standard devices out there. What we've also seen and done now is in having the tablets, having the desktop devices and everything else, we've now extended that into more of the ATMs, all the medical equipment, robotics, manufacturing, retail devices, and everything else. We've pulled that all together, works well, and we've really even taken another step further. So the cool thing and the key message in this is we have a fully manageable solution that is enterprise ready, as well as, and you can manage, it's so flexible between you're leveraging MDM services, it could be remote connected devices, it can be infrastructure connected, well connected to your corporate networks. We've got a multitude of different ways that we can implement it, but still, when you go back to it, it's all manageable. So we now have that full enterprise experience on the system. We have a well-connected device with a multitude of ways to connect the device. Very targeted solutions out there. The rich experience with the start screens, the multi-app model that we now have out there. If you choose to have a single application that does it, we can make that still fairly rich, especially with the new universal Windows platform, and leveraging applications for that, having that full continuum model, fully supported. Okay, so you could have a multitude of different ways you want to present a single application for these on different devices. The fully secure, the standard security policies and platform that we support on the standard enterprise device is fully supported on the Windows Kiosk, which at this point, we'll talk about that and we'll show you some of the feature capabilities here in just a minute. But it's, like I say, I'll reiterate, just envision taking a standard enterprise desktop and making that into a full kiosk and a lockdown device just by enabling a few features, which we'll demonstrate. So how do you get there? It's great to just go in and turn features on, but we want to make a feature-rich solution. So some of the key things that we've learned out there is you really kind of have to have a kind of a step process in going through and delivering this. You've got to clearly define what your business goals are first, identifying some key use cases out there. How is that device physically going to be used? We'll talk about that in a minute as well, too. And then what's your functional requirements? That's critical path. If you want to make this in a really well-oiled machine and properly accepted and the use is proper on it, you've got to clearly articulate what those functional requirements on the front end, because those functional requirements are going to decide how and what you're going to build. And then designing your user interface, understanding what's going to be the use cases, how are the users going to consume this device. And then, of course, in this, specifically the device type. There's a multitude of ways to do that, and we'll show a tablet that we see, and hopefully some of you guys will actually have already seen. And then how do we deploy and secure that device? So you need to clearly understand what's going to be your management components and capabilities for that device going forward. So one of our current customers that we've been working with, they developed their large retail chain. And we're like, what is your key business goal? So just to give you an idea of what the business goals concepts here is. It's nothing, it doesn't have to be massively complex or anything. But once you define the business goals, now you as IT guys can start framing up the work and the solution to support that. So in their space here, they wanted to have tablet-type devices. And what's really interesting is, we'll discuss understanding what a tablet-type device was, but they said they want to roll it out to all their stores, but it needs to be a multi-purpose solution out here. And as we talk about that, so they actually want associates to be able to easily switch between different type of capabilities. Some of it's point of sales, some of it's item lookup, back office services, all of that off of one standard system. So you got lots of things to understand about that, like PCI compliance, because you're doing transaction-based services on this as a point of commerce device. So you have to figure out how to secure that device and protect it between, you can't have multiple users logged in on the device so that other people could potentially attack. So standard user models, and how do you protect the data from the point of sales commerce and stuff. So understanding what that business goal was critical. One of the other things is they were actually consolidating from in between 10 to 20 devices and consolidating down to 3 devices. How do you do that? I mean, we're only talking about a kiosk, right? You know, a lockdown secured device. So the concept of kiosk has changed tremendously. Kiosk implies presenting a common user interface that is well secured and stable and always going to have a known consistent state. Okay? So if we start looking at that. And then how do some of the other things is, how do we support it? How do we maintain that? How do we do security devices and patches and fixes and everything else to that device to ensure that we have a continuously stable device? So if we start looking at use cases out here for a kiosk solution, we generally try to categorize that as it's going to be a public access, because that's going to define your security layer. And anything out there, so the device is going to be, you may not have keyboards, mice, anything like that. It may be connecting to a hidden network so that it's not, it's not a visible network that the device is leveraging out there. Internal usage might just be some devices you set around in common areas, common area facilities, or maybe it's training rooms. It can actually be like what we call like hotel office space, where just a roaming user would come in for the day and sit down. He needs access to a computer. It could be a call center. It could be where you've got a 24/7 service. People come in for an 8-hour shift and come sit down on the computer, and they need access to that computer, and then as soon as they leave, another person would come back in and log in on that device and use that device. So those are common ones. Maybe it's a loaner device. Somebody's device is just broke. You want to loan out a device, but you don't want to have to keep worrying about every time that person uses it, that when they bring it back, you've got to refresh that device. We can leverage kiosk services and just like that simple reboot, and the device is back to its original state. And then we have the different, so we have to understand how that device, that user usage, and what's going to be the model for that. So we have 2 different things. That's the reason why I asked the question, how many people are using multi-app model, which is a new concept that we didn't have with embedded devices out here. Now we're able to leverage 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 device applications on the device, or it could be one single application. And there's totally different ways to approach how we target those type of situations. With Windows 8.1 Enterprise, single app experience out there, we could launch and just use simple assigned access and have one universal app on it. And that could represent something like an airport kiosk system out there. If you wanted to use a multi-app model, it might simply be something like an entertainment system that's presenting music and apps and videos and internet access and stuff like that, but still be secured. And we'll demonstrate a little bit of that here in a minute too. And then you've got to define what type of device is going to be used to support that. Is it going to be a tablet? Is it going to be an all-in-one? Maybe it's an all-in-one, but you don't want keyboards on it. Or maybe you need keyboards on it. When we talked about the Gartner Symposium, we used the HP all-in-ones in that symposium. What was really interesting, they used to use, when they had Windows 7, and they used to use little Lenovo, and it was a 2-point touch screen that they used. Nobody even realized, because of the fact that it had a keyboard on it, even for the little Lenovo's, they never used the touch screen on it, so they didn't grasp the concepts of it. We put the HPs out there to begin with, and we had a keyboard and a mouse. Well, one of the concerns is people walk away with keyboard and mice. So I said, well, let's make sure it's a touchscreen device and it works well. If that keyboard disappears, they can still use the touchscreen for everything. But at the end of the day, if I had to do it completely, I would just have done just a touch and not had a keyboard and a mouse out there. Because it's, for what you're doing, if it's a good, stable interface, you don't need to type up letters and emails and everything else. And actually, even the virtual keyboards actually work quite well now. So, and then there's the point of sales device out here. So all of these, that's a highly specialized product. In most cases, they come from the manufacturer with embedded or pause ready or something else already enabled on them. We can now take those same devices, in which we've been actually testing, and upgrade them with Windows 8.1 and Windows 10, and actually operate them without the embedded, and actually have a much better, more versatile type of device out here. So let's talk real quickly just about what we currently have and where we're going with it. Let's talk about Windows 8.1. So you can take just a standard Windows 8.1 device, put a basic Windows 8.1 with either Pro or Enterprise SKU on that device, and lock it down. And do like I said, you can use third-party tools. Deep freeze is one of those components out there we mentioned. And then there's, I think that's from like Phoronix. But you can use GPOs and lock that device down. Use a standard user concept, which and have an automated login process, whatever the case may be there. Or you can actually take the Windows 8.1 industry embedded, part of your SA benefit. So I don't know how many people are aware that you actually now, if you've got SA services, you can actually go up and download industry straight from your volume license site. Okay. Nobody's even aware of it, right?
There's a couple.
A couple?
Yep.
Okay. So it's already available for people to use, and that's from 8.1. It's not that it looks just like your standard Windows 8 client out there. Basically, once you download it, you'll go in and enable a couple of features on it. Derek will do a brief demo on that here in a minute and just show how simple it is to enable it. And it's there. And if it's enterprise, you've got the full capability there also. So this is kind of the feature comparisons for it. It's really important to understand what the features, how they're enabled, what you can do with this. So I kind of took and created this eye candy chart for this. As you can notice when we talk about assigned access, on Windows 8.1 Enterprise, assigned access is a single application only, okay? And it has to be a modern application is what we call that. Yep. We did have modern IE, so you could use IE in it, or it could be any other one of your store apps. It could be an internal line of business app, whatever the case may be. And we apply gesture filters, notification filters, dialog pop-ups, and all that's automatically applied to that. So it's just kind of bundled into it, but it's a single application, okay? So, but then we also had like Shell Launcher and stuff like that. Be aware of Shell Launcher. Shell Launcher, if you were using it, it allows you to create a different shell to launch a custom UI, which some people want to do. It's a very fractional. They would replace Explorer EXE and create their own shell. You can't run modern apps with it. So, because you have to have UAC. UAC is only supported on Explorer EXE. And then start menu customization. So if you're going to take advantage of a really cool start screen, you want to be able to control that. You want to be able to provision and change and redefine that on a routine basis, or maybe not, but you want to be able to have control over that. As you can look in the list here, we kind of show where and what you can do that with. It's important to note, if you're only using Windows 8.1 Industry Pro, you must be domain joined, or it has to be volume license activated. Actually, it's volume license and domain join. And then if you're Windows 8.1 Enterprise, it's just supported out there, okay? So, and if you'll look at right filters, this is where you'll notice that these components were on Industry Enterprise. It's available on Industry Pro. On the Enterprise, yeah, so everything here else is correct. Also, the other one, how many people deal with side-loading applications yet? Is this something you guys have been doing with 8.1 or anything else, line of business apps? Okay, interesting. So understanding what the side-loading key requirements are for that if you're using Windows 8.1. So that's going to be kind of interesting. So I hope you guys can see some of the value out of here in a minute, where modern applications really help you. So where we're going with vNext of Windows Edition to Windows 10. So Windows 10 Enterprise, all the same concepts and capabilities what we're doing with Windows 8, all that's still fully applicable. Okay, it's a standard GPO model. But if you want to enable the embedded features on it now, it ships with all those features directly in it. Any Windows 10 device, if you guys are downloading Windows 10 Preview, Technical Preview, build 74 currently, these features are there, and you have the ability to go ahead and start playing with it, and we'll demonstrate where those components are here in a minute. So how many people are really, and maybe that's a good question, how many people are really familiar with all the different filters and capabilities of Windows Embedded? Is this fairly fractional? Okay. So one of the important things, so we have unified write filters. What is a unified write filter? A write filter is a filter that's actually applied to your local disk on your drive, and we create a little overlay file which can be either a carved out section on your hard drive or it can be a carved out section in memory. That filter, every time that device reboots or comes out of a what they call home state, everything's erased. Any changes, once that OS boots, we're tracking it into a separate little shell area, and then once we do a hibernate reset or a reboot on that device, depending on how we configure it, all changes are removed from that device. That's really, really cool because you now have the ability to have a really, really stable device that's always in a known configuration out there. We support a service mode that allows you to call the write filter, the UWF manager, allows you to call it and force that system into a service mode, which actually opens it up, if you wish, removes the filter, and allows you to apply updates and everything else in a protected state. Okay? Keyboard filters, allowing you to control plus Windows, control plus P or anything else. We can block all those unique shortcuts and everything else if you have a keyboard on that device. USB filters, we can protect the USB access port, block everything else out of it, or we can control explicit devices out there and say this single device has access but nothing else does. Gesture filters is now that we have all the capabilities on Windows 8.1 with all the charms and everything else, we can block all the charms bars and everything else out there and prevent that stuff from being populated. So these features are what makes the story a whole lot better if you're thinking about building a device and just cutting it loose and setting it out into the environment for people to use. You have the ability to ensure that device is going to remain in a stable state. So some of the differences between Windows 8.1 and Windows 10 when we look at this concept of the embedded features out here, as you can see, there's no change for things like the unified write filter. There's a file-based write filter that now is called unified write filter. There's an enhanced write filter, same thing, it's now unified write filter. So we're consolidating different product components out there. The USB filter, it's now replaced with a policy capability. Generally, the way we still implement it from you guys, if you haven't been dealing with the past, you'll just learn the new process and there's no need to worry about the differences. Keyboard filter, same capability out there. What we've done is the capability of keyboard filter, gesture filters out here, we've now consolidated them into assigned access mode. Now, you might ask, if it's assigned access, didn't I say that's a single application model? It is a single application model for Enterprise, but for Windows 10 Enterprise, we now are having a multi-app model support for the assigned access. Okay, so you'll be able to define a multitude of applications in that. So we're trying to make the capability and the consumption of this easier out there. So the app launcher, shell launcher, and all that's the same. Dialog filter, that's now a supported component inside of AppLocker. There's a couple of things we don't know about yet. So I was hoping to have that information before today, but we haven't got it yet. So the message box notification filter, if everybody's familiar, how many people are using 10 yet? Good, at least more people. That's good. So as you swipe from the right to the left, you now, instead of getting charms like you have with Windows 8.1, you actually get this whole notification center out here. Lots of different notifications you can control. There's a multitude of ways of what things you can turn on and off once you go into settings view, and you can change what type of notifications you get. But we can also control that with embedded now. So we just don't, their plans are to control it. We just don't exactly know how and what that's going to look like yet. We're still waiting for product group to finish on that. Same thing for start screen layout controls. Start screen has changed with Windows 10 versus what it looked like for Windows 8. It's still got the same concepts of the modern application stuff. We've just kind of changed the UI a little bit. We still are waiting to see exactly how our capabilities, what type of capabilities we're going to have. I'm told that we will definitely have all the capabilities. We just don't know exactly how they are and how they're going to be implemented yet. So, Eric, why don't you do some fun stuff here?
Absolutely. So, to kind of recap what Scott was just talking about, what I have here for this first virtual machine I want to show you here, it's running Windows Embedded 8.1 Industry. So this is the legacy version. We're going to go to Windows 10 in just a moment to show you that. So if you were to download Windows Embedded 8.1 Industry today, the embedded features are an additional feature pack that comes with that SKU. And you'll see we have the application launcher, the dialog filter, etc., all under embedded features in the Windows program and features. You can use DISM to add these to an online image or to an offline image before you deploy it. This system already has these features enabled on here. And one of the things I want to show you real quick is the Embedded Lockdown Manager provides a GUI interface for configuring things that we just talked about, like a dialog filter, a gesture filter, and a keyboard filter. So for an example, on the keyboard filter here, if I click on all keys, it will show me the keys that I'm allowing, which is based on filter state allowed, and there's a green checkbox, and as well as the keys that I want to block. So right now I'm allowing everything, but let's say I wanted to block the escape key, for instance. I can right click and change it to block, and hopefully it will refresh on here for you.
It'll refresh.
There it goes. Anytime you do a configuration of one of these features, you can actually export. So if I go back to keyboard filter, I can export this configuration to PowerShell. And this PowerShell script can then be put into your image creation or image deployment process to not only turn on the feature through DISM, so I first need to turn on the feature for keyboard filter, but then to apply the actual configuration changes that you want to the keyboard filter so that your system is configured the way you want. And what I want to show here also is a unified right filter real quick. Windows 8.1, and then we'll look at it on Windows 10. So the unified right filter allows you to protect volumes. So for instance, you can turn on protection for the entire C volume, and then you can create file and registry exclusions. So think of an exclusion as something that you want to write a persistent change to. So when the right filter is enabled, your changes are writing to a cache. It could be a cache in memory or cache on disk, and when you restart, the cache is cleared. So there's no persistent information carried through. If you create a file exclusion, let's say you want something to carry through, like in a C temp folder, for instance, you create the exclusion, your changes will persist from reboot to reboot. The right filter also is aware of Config Manager and vice versa. So if you're using Config Manager to manage these devices, you can say, let's put the unified right filter into a maintenance mode, apply updates to the device, commit those changes, and restart with the right filter, and then you're back to a good known configuration that's been patched. Otherwise, if you were just trying to patch the system without first putting it into maintenance mode or servicing mode, it would fail because the patch would apply and then it would restart and it would be back where it started. Let's look at Windows 10, and we'll see that things have changed slightly here. So from a Windows features perspective, there is no longer an embedded feature anymore in terms of like having dialog filter, gesture filter. We do have an embedded shell launcher, but what we do have that we can show you here is a unified right filter. So this is a separate feature on its own in Windows 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to say, let's add this feature to the system. And then I have to restart, because I'm adding a feature live in front of you right now, in order to manage it. So I'm going to restart that, and then we'll look at what we can do with the unified right filter in just a moment. Do you want to cover something else while this is rebooting?
Well, that's super fast.
It's a super fast Hyper-V.
So Yeah, so some of the important things is to understand is we also have the ability to create, even for the right filter for the drive, we can, using PowerShell, we can actually define explicit subfolders and stuff. Let's say you've got an application that needs to persist information out there. So the right filter is really cool, but it would also dump all that data from that application component also, or it could be something that maybe has to have configuration changes, or maybe you have telemetry information you want to retain on that device, like use of that device and what applications are being used and all that sort. We have the ability to target explicit folders and actually open that component up so that that data will persist in those given sections out there. Same thing for file and registry that Eric was mentioning out there as well too. That's really important. So in understanding that, so make sure when you're developing with your applications, understand if there are some of those core components and requirements out there for that application that you're going to need. Or maybe it's, that's generally the biggest components of it.
Yeah, the other thing that we also want to point out is if you're going to use Configuration Manager to manage these devices, it's going to sound like you're over-engineering a bit, but bear with me for a moment. Do not put file or registry exclusions in for Config Manager. And for those of you who use Config Manager, you're thinking, well, my cache, well, that's going to be changing. I want those changes to persist, and I want my system state to persist, and so on. Config Manager is aware of the unified write filter and vice versa. If you actually put in exclusions for Config Manager, you're going to break Config Manager. So that's the tip of the day. Do not put in write exclusions for Config Manager. It's aware of the filter and it's going to work. My connection is not going to work here, so let me try that again. Let's connect to that client. See if it comes back up here. We might have to filibuster for another moment or two while this is coming up. Live demos.
So let's think about, so in the filter space, so also enabling, I think we pretty much covered most of the filter space. Let's see, what's some of the other challenges we have? So we talked about notification and dialog pop-up filters and everything. Those are all customizable as well too. That they're fully manageable through PowerShell if you wish, instead of using ELM out there, in which as we move into Windows 10, we're also going to see that's what's happening there as well too. So you may not have gotten a full shutdown. You may have to do a hard reboot.
Yeah, this is live demos here. This is good. Let's just turn it off and try this again.
So basically what he was going to do in here, if this doesn't work, so basically we're going to go in and just show how we create. We had a question?
Yeah. The filter, can be applied also on the IoT SKU or only on the...
So for the IoT SKU, yeah, it's still fully, all that filter. And actually I had a session yesterday that shows, so if you're looking at like core in mobile SKUs, it does not have write filters on it. Okay, that's only on the industry level for IoT. So the question was, can we also apply write filters as well? Is that this support that we're talking about for write filters also supported on the IoT SKU for Windows 10? And the answer to that is not for core and not for mobile device out there. Okay, so but for the full enterprise industry SKU, it is fully supported there.
So it doesn't look like my client's coming back, but there's one other thing that we want to bring up, and I think we're going to cover it in a few minutes, is with the write filters enabled, one of the things we want to think about is when a user logs in for the very first time to one of these devices, you'll notice that all the modern applications are installing in the user's profile for that first time. If you have your write filters enabled, and it's the first time a user's logging in, every time they log in is the first time in which they're logging in. So you'll have that period of time in which all the applications are being installed into the user profile because the write filter says, I've never installed these, and it will persist. So one of the things that we've done is to speed up the process for some of our customers is to pre-cache that user profile. So if we know the user profile of the system is going to be running, we allow that first-time logon, install the applications in the user context, and then apply the unified write filter.
All right, so we'll just move on.
Move on.
I'm not going to worry. That's not it. So the sexy point of it was the fact that we were just going to go in and change the home page on a browser.
It's actually coming up now, so.
Oh. Well, we'll go in and do it then.
Yeah, it's coming in right now.
You need better hardware.
I do need better hardware. Here we go. So what I want to show you here is I have Internet Explorer. I believe the home page is set to MSN right now. And what we've done is we've enabled the feature, but we haven't configured the feature yet. So I'm going to open up a command prompt here as administrator. And we're going to enable the right filter for our C volume on here. So the command line for it, and once it comes up here, this thing is being a little, there we go. Give it a moment, please.
All right, everybody turn your phones
Yep,
off. Get off the
Wi-Fi. Everybody can see my desktop now. Let's try this again. I think this is the demo that just doesn't, after all my demos went well yesterday, we're bound to have a little bit of a trouble. Let's go ahead and move on, and we'll come back to this. That way we're not.
Sure thing.
No problem.
We're on 2, right? 5.
5.
All right. So we'll come back to that, revisit that here in a second. So as we start looking at this, so different scenarios, let's look at different scenarios that we've talked about for this. Some of the things that we see in the industry challenges now is that our consumers are becoming more demanding. And with them now having all portability devices and everything else, they have the more authority to be able to control how we need to work and provide information for them. Being that the competition is tougher than the retailers are looking at this saying we need to be more innovative. We need to continue to provide capabilities and reasons why the customer wants to come visit and shop with us. What makes us more unique out here? Low customer delight. If you walk into a store, I'm not going to give any names of any specific stores, that would be bad of me. Some stores aren't as innovative, and some stores are just kind of the old run-of-the-mill. Then you walk in, it's, okay, I want to go find something on a shelf. And maybe I don't have any way to look and find additional inventory. You can't find salespeople or anything else out there. A bad experience. Versus walking into a location that has many different informational displays out there, has the ability to do quick price lookups, has salespeople that are enabled with cool devices to get out there and help check inventory. It will maybe even select and actually help you build your shopping list there. Maybe it's like gift registry items. You know, you see a lot for bridal showers and stuff like that and weddings and all that stuff. These companies are innovative, right? They're providing the services that people connect to and understand. So that gives them a better service quality out there, and that personal experience is much better. So those are very important. Using the kiosk solution, we've covered a multitude of different things that we're doing nowadays. We mentioned the retail. Also, the banking industry is getting much more into this. I'm having more conversations even about small bank branches and stuff like that. Where and how can they be more innovative? Airlines, we're covering them quite well, and we'll demonstrate that here in a minute. Food services, hotels, you can get the idea. All the different verticals, we have capabilities in all these different vertical businesses out there. The multitude of different devices that we have, the selections are vast. Because of the fact that you can just use and download this from your standard volume license, you can basically anything that supports Windows 10, you can put this on that type of device. Okay, it doesn't have to necessarily be something specific just from OEM out there. We're now supporting cloud services, consuming Azure services, the ability to provide better capabilities on these applications, linking it in. Maybe it's, I mentioned briefly telemetry. Maybe we just want to be able to know how that device is being used, so we can make some logical decisions on maybe the next iteration, the next phase of it, okay? Social aspect. You guys have been, how many people use Skype services out here this week? We've got a multitude of these devices out there. That's a kiosk, right? So providing that service to help people consume our product. And then having that IT control. We now have that. We have full control of these devices, and it can be to the fullest extent, or it can be the most minimal extent, all depending upon how you guys want to set that up. So as we look at it, so we talk, cash registers, durable products and everything, desktops, and the bigger kiosk components. These are always been separated components, but now the reality is we're bringing this in. A lot of our customers are coming to the tablet. Okay, that actually, honest to goodness, we've got retail stores actually building point-of-sale services on tablets out here. So now they've been innovative. I want line-busting capabilities. I get people backed up. They get a big sale going on. Now they can go out with the tablet and scanner device and actually scan all the tags and everything else and run and process their credit cards right there off of the line and help people get through the lines quicker. So as we mentioned, some of the examples is retail food chains. Maybe it's a digital family experience out there. So I want you guys to just kind of think through these things, different ways that these things can be leveraged. A customer comes in and sits at a table. He wants to be able to watch kids play some games, or maybe the person wants to check news, weather, anything else out there. We provide that capability. One retail chain actually there was a compete for an iPad, and from the IT's perspective, we won this hands over. That they now finally had a device that they can control. Same thing for retail department stores. We've already covered that some. Mandarin Oriental, we'll show this here in a minute. It's two really nice hotel service and hospitality service for people to come in, walk in, and accept a tablet and have full capabilities and services with that. How many people fly Alaska Airlines? So we got a couple people in here who have done that. How many people have you seen the in-flight entertainment system? Absolutely beautiful product, and we'll discuss that a little bit exactly how that's actually serviced. And Eric's got one right here.
Yep.
So without the case, but,
right.
There's a reason for that. So, so these type of capabilities that we're looking at and more to enable. So let's take a look at this real quick, and I want to demonstrate this. And let's actually do an escape. Go into a video. Let's look at this real quick.
In today's fast-paced world, delivering an exceptional customer experience and in-flight service is crucial to gaining our customers' trust and retaining their business. Alaska Airlines' roots are in the Pacific Northwest, a region with a recognized reputation for cutting-edge technology and inspired flavors. We're proud to bring the unique Northwest experience by offering our passengers an unparalleled flight experience in partnership with Microsoft and SkyCast Solutions. Sitting at 30,000 feet just got a whole lot more interesting. Our customers span all ages and interests. The Windows in-flight entertainment tablet provides choices that everyone can enjoy in a format that's comfortable and intuitive. From the first glance at the screen, guests see the rich user interface with Windows Live tiles inviting the viewer to explore a wide variety of content. And our Toshiba Encore tablet offers robust capabilities like split-screen viewing for simultaneous content experiences. Whether it's an Xbox game or a new release movie, or catching up on the latest episodes of a top TV series, the Windows in-flight entertainment tablet is easy to use. At Alaska Airlines, customer satisfaction is priority one. We're proud to partner with Microsoft and SkyCast Solutions to bring our customers the best and very latest in-flight entertainment experience in the air.
So that's just one example right there of innovation, right? Yes, I got a question over here. So it's not, actually.
Yeah,
so
this is it right here.
This is it right here, but they've done is they've put some casing around it. One of the things that this is important to think about when you think about developing and designing your tablet components or whatever you're going to use. One of the things that they had to think about was, okay, where's the power? Where's the volume controls? Because they're on the sides. There's no branding or marking or anything else on it. Where's the Windows button, right? So we're all used to looking and pushing the Windows button on the front to get to your start screen and everything else. Windows button's over here on the side, and people have to search. So what they did is they put an encasement around it, and then that encasement at that point actually has little logo indicators and stuff like that for it. The other component of that is we also have an SD card that we use in it. We don't really want people just to pop that SD card out, so we're protecting the device a little bit with that. But from the ruggedized aspect, this thing's tough. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's a $200 price device, and it's tough. They use the Gorilla Glass and everything else. These things are getting dropped everywhere. I've not heard of them. We put 8,000 of these devices out there. I've not heard of one of these getting broke as of yet so far. We'll knock on some wood somewhere.
Yeah, exactly, right here.
So that's a great question. So there is, but there are many devices that can be ruggedized. So even like our Surface, we get Incipio cases and stuff like that ruggedize it and puts a rubber case around it to help protect it. Okay? So, hey, that was interesting. It popped to the...
I moved you ahead, so you could discuss
it.
Yeah,
it's on the wrong side.
Oh.
You silly man.
We got to reverse it.
Yep. Slideshow from Carlson.
There we go.
Uh-oh, nope.
Nope, now we're duped.
Houston, we got a problem here. Well, that's all right. This is unusual, so let's change presentation site on it. Slideshow, manage. And monitor, not automatic. Let's see which one's monitor number 2. Let's try this. All right, it's the opposite way. So it will be slideshow monitor number 1. Yep.
Yeah, okay. There we go. Let's try it again.
All right. And
Current slide.
let's go back to from current slide. There we go. Now
Much
we're
better.
back. So to implement this, and I'll try to rush through, make sure we have plenty of time. We got a half an hour left here. So Skycast, we went in and engaged with them. As I started talking about some of the things that we mentioned earlier, understanding the business case, functional requirements, and everything else, we had to engage them. So this was a combination between working with Alaska Airlines. Skycast Solutions owns this solution, which they can then take this solution and implement this to other airlines as well, too, which they already are working, and things are looking quite well there. But then we also worked with Ratio, who's the application developer. So we came in as an architect and helped kind of orchestrate and look and build design and make sure the client worked the way they needed to. To do that, we had to get some of these requirements out here. So the first core thing is a portable solution out there they needed to require. It needed to be flexible. So in other words, they want the ability to rebrand quickly. And we'll demonstrate, give you guys an idea of how that was done here in a minute. It cannot be domain joined or anything, so we had to do, the reason for that is they need super lightweight network traffic. So think about this is on the airlines, it's flying in the air. They're putting 100 of these devices on every airplane. We don't want your guys' go-go service to go south because we're cranking up 100 of these devices out there and connecting to the internet and processing a lot of data and stuff like that. So we keep it fractional because they also get charged for any data off of these devices. So to help them ensure that it's a low-cost entry point and not impactful, we made sure that we had kept that low connectivity. We say 0. There's a little snippet because we actually do track telemetry on these devices. But the ability to update this stuff on a monthly basis, and we'll show recurating this device here in a minute. We'll show how that actually works. And that's some of the really cool stuff out there. These are the things that really start lighting up your ideas, hopefully. The ability to update that content via the insertion of an SD card, and that's what we'll demonstrate. So, and then the lockdown, so that the passengers always have that consistent experience every time we reboot and reset that device. The device goes to sleep, it wakes up, it does a reboot just to make sure that it has been clearly cleared out. Long battery life, stuff like that. Don't want them accessing to the desktop. So some of these things, system updates, we want to be able to update this. So even on that SD card, we fully manage and do Windows updates. We do start screen controls. We do new applications. We do new content curation. Everything just off the simple insertion of an SD card. Restoring it back to that original state that we talked about, and then the rebranding. So let's take this scenario. Let's talk about the next thing here. So let's talk briefly about Mandarin Oriental. This is another type of solution. I want you guys to just kind of think and start visualizing how this stuff could be used. And I'll be, after this we get some questions, I'll be happy to talk if you got questions and thoughts around this. So let's try this one more time, make sure we don't mess up our presentation again. That's interesting.
Mandarin Oriental manages some of the world's most legendary hotels and resorts. We provide 21st century luxury with Oriental charm in the world's most sought-after destinations. As a global luxury brand, we provide an extraordinary combination of quality, tradition, and innovation. Technology plays a key role in how we innovate and deliver a personalized luxury experience for our guests.
Here at Mandarin Oriental Las Vegas, we know firsthand that the ultimate luxury experience is one that's seamless and effortless. It's where the guest defines the experience they want, then we provide it, when they want it, the way they want it. That sounds simple, and it is, as a concept. The execution is far more complex.
We believe tablets running the right solution in our guest rooms can help. However, putting off-the-shelf consumer tablets with some web-based apps in our guest rooms wasn't good enough. We need an enterprise-level solution, and we chose to pilot a Microsoft solution in partnership with Iris Software Systems. Currently, we have 4 installations of the Microsoft solution at our hotels in London, Tokyo, Washington, and Las Vegas. Guests can use the Surface Pro tablet to order a number of hotel services, from housekeeping and valet to in-room dining.
Passion, enthusiasm, and attention to detail is essential in order for our guests to feel that they're being looked after by people who genuinely care for them. With the Microsoft solution, here at Mandarin Oriental Las Vegas, we have a great opportunity to use the latest technology to improve our service delivery and enhance our guest experience as a result. And at Mandarin Oriental, that's what we're all about, delighting our guests.
Every day, we're committed to making a difference. We're excited to bring this first-to-market industry solution with Microsoft. We see this as just the beginning, and we envision adding many more services across our hotels in the future. As we open in new and exciting destinations, we remain focused on becoming widely recognized as the best luxury hotel group in the world.
All right, so one thing that's really interesting in that also, so part of what happened and transpired in that, when that person places an order, it actually goes into Azure. Azure actually sends out notifications to the room services group on their the Nokia 1520s. Okay, so it's full network capability, linkage, service ordering. The other thing you also notice, it had the funky language and everything else on that. That device was built to support 36 different languages, and they can simply, the user, once he gets the device, he can select the language he wants, and everything's localized to the appropriate language that he's selected so that it's familiar for what they're used to speaking and reading with. So let's go back. Yeah, it worked that time. Good.
Yep.
All right, so Mandarin Oriental, as you noticed, there was a Surface Pro 3 device used out there. It was a series of applications, fully locked down device, full start screen controls. We can refresh those screens as they need with new applications, as they desire to change or rebrand the component out there. As we mentioned, so Azure, we also stream, so we're using Miracast capabilities, which there was some new interesting things we learned about Miracast when we first did that project and how to incorporate it so that we're able to ensure we're not actually connecting to a person's Miracast service in another room. So one interesting thing that we kind of walked into, so it's kind of like, okay, so I'm watching my video, but it's over there, and this guy's watching maybe the video he don't really want to watch in his room. So, of course, you don't know that it's not working.
Right.
You just watch it on your TV. So we had to figure out, we worked with Miracast and making sure, and the different Action Tech was the company we were working with, and made sure that we had a proper idea, capabilities and controls in there. So quite interesting little aspect. So let's talk a little bit about image creation and automation. So let's get down to the geeky stuff now. So Eric, you want to walk into this a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things to understand is when you are building an image for a kiosk environment, you can use all of our tools that Microsoft provides. We've used MDT to do image creation and deployment. We've used MDT to do image creation and then deploy with Config Manager. With Windows 10, we also have the Windows ICD, which is the Image Creation Designer. It allows you to create provisioning packages where you could do features on demand, add different components into your image, upgrade from Pro to Enterprise SKU, for instance. So we've got some different flavors coming with Windows 10. But the old tools will still work, and the new tools will just give you new capabilities as well. So if we go to the next slide, so some of the challenges I'd mentioned earlier about trying to optimize this for user profiles. So when we think about the user's first time log on and the applications being installed, those are some of the things that we had to work around to say, okay, we can optimize the login process by pre-caching. But when it comes to modern applications, they install in the user's context. So if you want to upgrade those applications, it becomes a little bit trickier because if we go to apply that to the system, and the right filter says, okay, I've got to make a change, it can make a system change, but it can't make the user change. And we ended up in a loop where, oh my goodness, we can't upgrade this or update this app for the user. So there's some workarounds we've done. We'll show you some of the post-installation configuration we've done to work around that. And the other thing is when we are deploying these images, you want to enable unified right filter, but you don't want to configure it because you can't come out of a task sequence with the right filter on because it doesn't remember that it was still coming out of a task sequence, so it continues it. And rinse, wash, repeat, it just keeps happening over and over. So again, we went through, and if you want to advance it just one more, we did the pre-caching of the user profile before UWF enabled in order to optimize that logon. And then we had to create some custom scripts in order to go through so we don't have to keep doing this over and over manually. So here's a workflow, and this slide deck will be available after this presentation. You can download it from Channel 9. But in essence, this is the pre-caching workflow that our teams have developed that goes through and it puts in some hooks at the end of the operating system deployment process. And it says, let's wait until the task sequence is done. And it's got a little listener, it sits and waits. And once it's done, let's kick off some post-installation tasks. And the way we did this is we had two separate tasks, one for system level changes. So that was a scheduled task that was scheduled to run. It would run in system context. We use that in order to make system level changes after the OS has been deployed. The second thing we did is we created a auto run in a user context that ran upon first time logon. So what we would do is we have these two working together to say, all right, after the user has logged in for the first time and we've ran user-specific customizations, we're listening with that scheduled task to say, when's it done? When is it done? Okay, we're done. Now let's go through. Let's enable the unified right filter. Let's enable any other configuration changes we need at a system level. Delete that run once, and let's get back to where we're at. So that's kind of this whole flow chart here. Obviously, I don't want to go through every single thing in it, but it will be available for download. You can see some of the logic we've used there.
So maybe for sake of time, do you want to try the UWF again, or do you want to skip through? Let's just skip through it.
It's dead.
So one of the key components, you want to talk about this? You're familiar with the connected standby?
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with some of the connected standby issues we've been experiencing with.
How many people are familiar with what connected standby really means, right?
All right.
So go ahead and talk about what connected standby does and why it was a challenge for us.
Yeah, so connected standby, when you are enabling connected standby, when the system is idle for a period of time, it goes into a connected standby mode where it can do some background tasks, but in essence, a very low power state. When we go into servicing mode with unified right filter, it takes some time for the system to apply changes. And what we found was we had devices that were going into connected standby while they were trying to apply changes, and that's not a good scenario. So we actually, in our servicing script that we use for the Alaskan project here, we turn off connected standby before we put it into servicing mode, and then we can enable it back after we're done. KMS, you want to talk KMS real quick? I think you went too far.
Yeah, so another important component out here also, if you're activating the devices using your KMS services, one other thing that we also kind of learned about in due diligence of projects, which we learned through Mandarin Oriental, they're using KMS to activate their devices. One of the key problems that we really run into, we thought maybe there was a back-end hole or something else for KMS to be able to write through, but it was never thought through. Most of the people that do, when industry wrote embedded wrote their stuff, most of them are used to people doing a retail MAC key activation, which is a one-time activation you don't have to worry about anymore. If you're running KMS, every time that device reboots, because KMS activates when it's online. So we go out 180 days or 90 days, whichever the case may be, or somewhere in between, the device decides to reactivate. It's great, it works wonderful. Then we reboot the device. And then KMS has got to activate again. Now start thinking in multitudes of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these devices out here, and every day they're rebooting out here. And KMS is constant, so we're just slamming KMS with this all the time. And we finally started to realize, so basically what we did is we took and modified the servicing master script that is actually what controls the process when it goes into a lights out mode for servicing. And we actually just simply slipped in the SL manager and requested an automatic reactivation at that point in time. That took care of our problem. So simple little things like that are gotchas that can end up having a poor experience or a great experience. And that's the reason why we put this in here, just so you guys would be aware of that if that was the path you chose to take.
Here's another gotcha that we learned the hard way. So on these small tablet devices that we were using, we have a single USB port on here. Let's see, where is it? It's on this side here. Micro USB, right here at the top. And we needed to do firmware updates to this. So the firmware would come and you plug in a USB, but the device would say, wait, I'm not on AC power. I can't apply a firmware update. So make sure you have a splitter that's powered that allows you to both charge the device and run USB, because we found that out the hard way as well.
We got to roll a little bit quicker. We're going
We're
to
gonna,
short.
Okay, hang on. All right, so we're going to demonstrate the ICD real quick here as a...
How many people are familiar with, we call it Wicked, so how many people are familiar with the Wicked tools? It's a new feature and capability with the 80K. Yeah, so it's still work in progress, okay?
Yep.
Trust me, it will start working properly, but it's work in progress right now.
It's definitely work in progress. And what we wanted to show here, just real lightweight, very quick, features on demand. So if you have an operating system feature on demand that you want to add to your OS image, you can browse to the cab file. I've actually already added .NET in here, but if I were to remove that, I can show you exactly what I did. Ooh, see, fun.
And
Unexpected
as we said,
error.
we're working on the product.
We weren't sure if we were expecting an error or not, but we were certainly expecting an error there. So let's see. If I go back here, and let's go to my media drive, and let's insert some Windows 10 media here. You should be able to access. So in the sources drive, we will have cab files in here. If we go to, let's see, I think it was, side-by-side assemblies, thank you. So .NET Framework is an on-demand feature. You can browse to that cab file, give it a name, and add it to your provisioning package. And one of the other things, there's a lot of policies here that can also be set or unset in your image. But one of the other things we wanted to show is if you had a Pro to Enterprise upgrade, if you had your key for Enterprise, you can plug this into a provisioning package as well.
Lift the P out of the front.
Lift the P out of the front. Well, we're not going to run this thing. I don't know if it's going to do a 5x5, but anyway, so you can add that feature in, and you can build this as a provisioning package. And that PPKG can be encrypted if you want. For the sake of time, we're not going to go through and enable that.
So the key thing in this, so what we're basically doing is while we're creating what we call provisioning packages, we also have the ability to do offline image custom. So we can actually just take the image.wim file that comes out of the core source media. You can take these packaging tools now and you can apply and actually create an image completely offline with the system as soon as we automate. And that's our optimum goals coming through this. Some of the things that if you guys use Windows Systems Image Manager, it's very arduous to get through. We're trying to now bring this as become the mainstream with a little bit more GUI friendlier interface and stuff like that to be able to do the same concepts what you did with Windows Systems Image Manager.
Yep.
So let's move on.
Let's move back to the demo.
Yep. So real quick, let's talk about if we were deploying devices. This is the way that we approach our Alaska Airlines. You would think we're Microsoft, we'd have some really cool ways and everything else. It is cool in its own sense. Small micro USB stick, and we deployed 8,000 devices like this. Core reasons, such as Eric pointed out, single access port. We've got to gain access. We were flashing a whole new image on the device. We had to have a simple way to get into it. We looked at cost comparisons and time frames and everything else. This was the quickest way to just do a standard media deploy for the system. So now then with it online, it's a totally different story, right? So now if you got corporate manageability and capability. So at the end of the day, in literally just a couple of weeks, we actually had 7,000 of these devices built, and then they added another 1,000 to the queue, and now they're adding another 1,000. So the process works. So some of the things is I really want you guys to understand is that we can base this off of a multitude of different type of devices. It doesn't just have to be a tablet. It can be any type of device out there. You need to start thinking and broadening the horizons of what you want it to do. IoT devices, now as we get forward into OEM industry-grade devices, full capability. Everything we're talking about here can be applied to these systems as well. In most cases, if it's a large medical device, a lot of them come already pre-configured and managed from the industry, and you wouldn't normally do anything to them. But we do have full support. Everything we talk about now, the OEMs have the capability to do that too. So let's talk briefly about support. And I'm going to run into time real quick. One thing I do want to do is that quick demo on the curation, and it'll take a couple minutes. So.
Yep.
But basically out there for the typical support requirements, we do have the ability. So the concept of having a static device out there, most of the people would build a kiosk and it's just kind of like build it and forget it, right? That's not the norm anymore, guys. Now it's being dynamic. The ability to change and modify and control, security updates, start screen controls, applications, all of these things, content refresh, which we'll demonstrate in a minute and see how it actually looks and works. So going through this right here, so the ability to do online servicing of the devices using standard Windows Update. If you go into the basic concept of when you first enable this, out of the box, that unified master script, service update script, basically just automatically attaches, it goes to Windows Update for you. So you may wish to choose and optimize and re-customize that out there. So to get into it, it's a simple command you would push out to the device. It's UWF MGR. I'm not sure where G came from. And then it's servicing enabled, and that forces a reboot on the device, and it goes into service mode. So this is that core script that we're talking about. As you can look through, if you were to walk through this on the lines out here, we go into update. First thing you'll see once we get out here, down at the update reboot, let's see, where's our service? Yeah, UWF servicing update Windows. That is an internal script instruction set that it understands, and that's going to go out and call for that Windows update. Okay? So this is just the basic one, and then at the end of the day, once it's done, if everything's successful, it goes in and says servicing disabled, so it knows that when it reboots, it's going to boot back up into the standard OS. It's that simple if you take the basic components. We took and extended that with a far more complex script to support the Alaska Airlines system here, as well as the Mandarin Orientals and stuff like that. Just understand that you can do that. Okay? So let's go on into this. So servicing models, basically, if we have poorly connected devices, which is what I really call the tablet here, because we're not doing any config manager support or management on our Intune support, how do we control that? So we can get that either through a USB device, enforcing and pulling updates down for it if it's not well connected. So basically, we created a file store on the USB, so the SD card. So these little bitty, teeny-weeny little SD cards out here. This thing right here actually on this contains OS updates. It contains some new applications. It actually contains media, movies, music, magazines. All the content's re-updated. It has new start screen controls, everything else on it. And upon a simple insertion, which we'll do right here, actually. So
let's demo it.
We got 5 minutes. So let's do that real quick.
All right. I'll switch over for you. So we're going to do it using a Surface camera pointing at this. The device is locked down, so we can't project from it. So
let's see.
Yep,
and it has great fidelity, so it's actually looking at it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to turn the device on first and let it get started up. So it's actually running at this given point. And it went to sleep. This was the one, unfortunately. If we have a special timer on the backside, the one thing we want this thing to also do is if it's idle for so long, which was, I think we've set it for like 35 minutes, which we've been speaking longer than that, the device says, okay, this device isn't being used anymore. Upon resume, it's in connected standby mode so that it can stream music. Okay, so if people are listening to music, the screen will go blank, it'll go into connected standby, goes into super low mode, but they're actually still able to stream music. They could run like that for 2 days out there. It literally is that much cost savings and power. So now we're going to boot this device back up.
we go.
And we'll see if everything looks okay there.
All right.
That'll be good. So ideally, and one thing you're going to notice on this device is it boots very quickly into the user account. One of the things we talked about for caching a standard user, you deploy the device as an administrator. And if you say, okay, I would need secondary accounts and stuff like that, if you go ahead and lock it down, Every time you reboot and you boot into a new secondary account that you've created, if you haven't cached that account, you've got to wait a couple of minutes for that device to kind of prep all the applications and everything else that are built on it. The customer didn't like that experience, and that's why we had to go through this whole process of doing this. So now what we're going to do, and hopefully the services all have cranked up quick enough, we will take and insert this SD card, and we should get, so it saw the insertion of the device. At this given point, in a moment, if we're really lucky, it all depends. There's a task sequence we got in a service engine that's actually running on the backside, and it may not have started up just yet. But that service engine, normally these devices are already running. We insert the card, and it'll check that and see that insertion, and it doesn't look like it saw it. So that's my luck. Should have had it rebooted and then running longer. Normally this would not be the case for them, but since I'm demoing, the demo guys do what they do.
Yeah, so as Scott was saying, there's a service that we wrote that's sitting there and it's listening for the event in which the SD card is inserted. And then it knows at that point it's going to run the tasks that are associated with doing the update of the system here.
And
did you put the right SD card in?
Maybe not. I have two.
Well, we had 50-50 there, so let's see.
So we'll let it sit here for a second. It should work. Or these the old SD cards. So what we do is we also have a timestamp signature on the card, and I may not have had the timestamp set. I should have checked that. So just do one real quick thing. Let's see if actually I probably can't do it. Oh, I know what I can do. I can do it on my PC. We will get this going here. Just 1 second.
All right.
Have all faith.
Wave, you're on MSDN. Hello, Channel 9.
You want to sing something, Eric?
Let me switch back to our deck here.
There we go.
So you need to think outside the box, as we're doing right now, as we're quickly getting our SD card timestamp set correctly. Definitely.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely the wrong date.
Okay.
No problem.
So as you can tell, when you work with these, you encounter some very interesting opportunities. Every time we seem to solve something, we always seem to find something a little challenging to find, but we persevere nonetheless. So let's see if we can get your camera back up and running.
Thank you.
There we go.
All right.
All right. Now let's see. Now we've set the timestamp appropriately, so the device will believe it has a newer set of content that should be available for it. And if we cross our fingers again, there we go.
So basically what we've done is we got timestamp signatures on this, which we actually register within the local device as well. And then that timestamp has to be on the card, so we have to know what our last provisioning component was on that SD card. So we need to know if that SD card is actually holding newer content than what was originally out there. So as you were to watch this device go in right now, you're going to see this thing going in. Now it's updating the device. So the system automatically has just gone in and it says, okay, I'm updating. We're going to go into service mode. This is a lights out component. We also don't want, when I say lights out, we don't want users, if you were needing to do an instant service on something at a device out, maybe it's an ATM or airport kiosk or something else, and you got to fix that device, you don't want the user to be able to have access. So we've locked out keyboard, mice, everything else for that device. So when it's in service mode, it's truly a secured service mode out there. Okay? So you're going to see it update, and that's the most you're going to see while it's servicing. It'll take a couple of minutes for it to do that. We'll go through and talk about a couple of things here. Want to pull up that extended service mode script?
Do you have it in here, or do we need to back it up?
Yeah, good question. Actually, it's not on there.
All right.
So I will...
We can sum it up, and then we'll go back to the updating device.
Yeah. So basically what we're doing in this service mode right now is we've added some scripts. So we have start screen layouts that we actually have to change. So we actually have to update the local profile on that device with the new start screen layout. Because of the fact that we have primaries and secondary tiles on this device, so if we look at the device, we have a movie component, but then we also have secondary tiles to it. we actually have to move that entire profile on this device. Okay, it's a little bit unique, a little bit unusual. With Windows 10, we've already communicated our feature request is that we have the ability to relayer enterprise-wide any primary and secondary tiles, IE tiles, and all that content without having to kind of go in and do, kind of move the earth type process to make that happen. So right now, the user profile, you have to go underneath app data folder. You have to go into that and go into roaming tiles and actually pull some content out from there. So we create a template of it, and then we move that template down to this new device as well too. This system's going through, at this point, it's actually doing an update to the FX package. It's actually going in and moving reference tiles and files for the next issue's magazine out there. There's a couple of OS updates that are being applied to this device. And then plus it's going to have references to all the new content for new movies and everything else out there. So at this point, we're running into...
We're over.
Just hit over.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to come up and see this in a second or anything else, trust me, when it comes back up, it's going to have a whole new start screen layout. So thank you all very much.
Have a safe trip home. Thank you.
Yes, and safe travels home, guys. It's been a great week, and I hope you all have had a wonderful week.